Hello, Audra. Hello, Will. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Good. How are
Good. How you
you?
doing?
I'm very good. I'm so happy to be talking to both of you today. I'm a big fan already, and Bite just made me even more of a fan of both of yours. So can you tell me about your characters in this show and their roles? Audra, you play Dr. Rachel Butella, and Will, you play Brian Ritter. So Audra, let's start with you. Tell us about Dr. Rachel.
I play Dr. Rachel Putella. She is a general practitioner. She's got her practice. It's the middle of a lockdown, so she's seeing all of her patients via telemedicine. And she's married to a man who is a doctor who works at the CDC, and he's down in Washington, D.C., trying to help the government deal with this particular lockdown. And Rachel has just led a fairly simple life. And all of a sudden, extraordinary times drop into her lap with this sort of calm life, and it forces her to find power within herself that she didn't necessarily knew she had or didn't believe that she had.
And what about you, Will?
I play a guy named Brian Ritter. He's like a war zone photojournalist, and as you know, jet setted around the world, shooting the war zones, and probably being very romantically played the field for his whole life, and then he meets this stunningly beautiful woman, Rachel Butella, and he just kind of gets blindsided by how deeply he falls in love with her. It's a brand new thing, and then simultaneously, kind of the moment he falls in love with her, this new strain of COVID hits the world, and so he's simultaneously dealing with his emotional life in turmoil, and then this his health also being in turmoil because he comes up in close contact with this new strain of the virus pretty quickly as well.
And what was it like for you guys filming a show about a pandemic while being in a pandemic?
It was interesting, honestly, because I've been working with the Kings and Brooke Kennedy, our showrunner and exec producer, for 4 years now, and here at the Good Fight, life and art are very close, and the Kings see what's happening in the world, and sometimes I wonder if they've got a little crystal ball, because a lot of stuff that happens on the Good Fight, I'm like, will then happen in real life a few months later. It's like, you wrote that 6 months ago. How is this actually happening now? So for me, filming a show about the pandemic during the pandemic with the Kings actually made perfect sense. As we were living it, we were acting it. And but of course, this is something that takes on a whole new life of its own, or unlife. I don't know, or are zombies called undead, I guess. But I think just their approach and the way they're looking at the show, and the way that they're looking at what a pandemic means, and what happens to people, and what happens to governments, and what happens to with social commentary, and just what's happening in the zeitgeist and how people react. The Kings are so smart in how they sort of just shine a spotlight on all of it. And I think this show gives people the opportunity to not only, there's obviously so much tragedy that has happened with COVID, and people can feel that and see that within these characters as well, but they can also then scream at what's happening due to the genre that we've put it in. And then they can laugh at it too, which can be sometimes a very empowering thing as we try and deal with this, because this pandemic is going to have an emotional toll on all of us. So, I mean, I think all of those things are powerful tools.
Well, I hope they don't have a magic crystal ball with the whole zombies, because
Yeah, right.
we don't need any of that. The pandemic was enough. But it definitely brings a lot of lightheartedness to, the pandemic that has been so hard on all of us. And I have to know what it's like, of course, working with your significant other. You guys must be together all the time, and then add that to it. So are there, a best part and a worst part about it?
The challenge was to not completely annoy my wife, because we were together 24 hours a day forever. I mean, I guess the nice part was that we all had a challenge during COVID of having to hunker down with everybody, and we were not most people aren't used to being with their significant other 24 hours a day, and we were. So this job gave us the opportunity to at least convert part of our day into another energy or another focus. So we had our home time and then we had our work time, and it was nice to be able to sort of shift gears and just to be able to work again in general was a blessing.
Same for you, Audra?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you nailed it, babe. You know, we were able to go off and pretend to be other people that still had eyes for each other, and get paid to do so. I mean, given what was going on in the world, that was kind of a blessing, and to do it in such a unique way that protected everybody. You know, we were filming this in October of last year, so we were starting to come up on another wave in a way, and the holiday, we were filming this all through the holidays as well, and the streets of New York were just empty. So it was, you know, the setting that we needed, we didn't have to imagine it. It was there, you know, it was there for us. So it was a way to sort of make believe within reality.
Absolutely. Hello, Phillipa. Hello, Stephen. It is so great to be talking with you both today about your new show, Bite. Congratulations on that. So, Phillipa, you play Cynthia. Stephen, you play Dr. Zach. Can you tell us about your characters and their role in this show? Let's start with you, Phillipa.
Yeah, well, Cindy works for the CDC and the White House. She's a White House liaison, and she is a spokesperson. She's really navigating the line between working under the umbrella of this administration and doing the right thing in terms of getting this information out to the public about this pandemic and what is happening. And she's working directly with Zachary Durrell.
And I played Dr. Zach Durrell, who was very Dr. Anthony Fauci-esque, a person who's sort of caught between the politics and the propaganda and the reality of wanting to, treat public safety like a priority in the midst of this very different kind of pandemic, one that involves zombies.
And what was it like working and doing a show about a pandemic while in a pandemic?
Well, it hit pretty close to home. But I think, as we were making it, we were like, wow, this is so funny, because if someone were to ask me what would be more absurd than what's just happening in our lives already, I'd say probably the zombie apocalypse. And there you have it. That's what we were working on.
As we read the news every day during the absurdity of how the pandemic was being treated by the administration, it's not surprising to me that Robert and Michelle thought, well, the only thing crazier than real life is zombies. Well, let's do something like this, but zombies. I can imagine that conversation in their living room.
Right. And I think the zombies, it definitely brings a lightheartedness to such a serious situation and a lightheartedness to everything that's happening now. So what's something that you're so excited for the audience to see and get out of this show?
Well, there's lots of great, smart winks towards what's happening in the news and how things were being handled at the time, which I think the audience will get a real kick out of for sure.
And I hope everybody just has a good belly laugh with this. I know that, we've all had a really, really hard time during this pandemic. And what's so amazing about this show is, yes, this situation is absurd and it's the zombie apocalypse, but also these characters their struggles are really rooted in truth and their own personal experiences. So it's a great balance of having that levity and that lightness, and at the same time being really rooted in all of the crazy things that we were grappling with at the moment.
And I have to know, what is it like to work with your significant other, as if you weren't stuck in the house all day together, and work on top of that? What are some highs and lows?
Well, our joke is that we finally got to spend some time together when we got to work on this show together, because we weren't getting really any time together in the entire year before that. Only 24 hours a day.
Yep.
We had a great time working together, and it was a testament to how well we get along, because we were sort of tension free, huh, babe, throughout. I mean, it was really lovely. But Pippa's the easiest woman I've ever met. That's really the reason.
Well, I think we all had our moments of okay, this is the pandemic. We need to remember. But it's, it was just ultimately really fun. And I would go to work, we'd go to work with our little sack lunches, and we'd get in the car. And I just think to myself, when is the next time that I'm going to get to do this, in this way with my husband, and I ultimately just felt so lucky to.
And we would jauntily go to work thinking, I hope we don't catch a deadly virus today or any other day in the next few months. But we didn't. We didn't. We were able to keep everyone, really safe with our insane COVID measures that we put in place for the bite, which was really ended up being essential to that.
Yeah.
So you're not in two separate rooms right now because you're just done with each other and you can't stand it.
No, we're actually two separate houses right now. We divorced. We just moved into two separate houses, and this is all just an act.
Really logistical because we don't want to have to be going like this.
That's fair. That's fair. And great news, apart from the bite, Broadway is coming back finally, and New York City's opening. How excited are you guys? And are there any shows that you are running to see?
Oh man, well I'm working on.
I'm going to be running to see. Oh, I was just saying. So you go, Steve.
You go first.
I'm going to be running to see my husband's show because Steve was working on a show before the pandemic hit.
We were doing a revival of Assassins, which is a Stephen Sondheim, John Weidman masterpiece, and is so timely right now after the events of January 6th. I can't wait for people to see that. So we're excited to get back in the room on that. We sort of had to grind to a halt because of the pandemic, but I think we're targeting that happening in the fall. And I know Pip has got some things cooking in the theater too. That'll probably happen in the winter or spring. So we're both really excited to be in that space. Also, what's crazy about the pandemic? We got even more addicted to our phones during this pandemic, I think. And I can't think of anywhere else in American life where we're not dealing with that addiction to that technology, except when we're in a theater, right? So it might be the only place in the American landscape where we don't have the visible addiction of our telephones. And it's got some essential value because of that going forward. So I think we need it. I think we really need it like medicine, like societal medicine.
Absolutely. Well, I'm also in the New York City area, so I'm so excited to hop back. I'm also a theater nerd, so I will totally be there.
Good. We'll see you there. We'll see you at intermission.
I will see you there. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today, and I can't wait.
Thanks.
Hello, Leslie.
Hi, Kayla.
How are you? So nice to be talking with you today.
I'm doing good. Thank you.
So we're here for the new show, Bite, which obviously has a lot to do with what's going on today, but with a little bit of a twist. Can you tell me about your character, Dr. Hesta Butella, and her role in this show?
She's brilliant in what she does. She has one child who's Audra, and they have a prickly kind of relationship, let me put it that way. And the thing about this is they are brought closer together because of this pandemic that is going on, and it changes their whole relationship.
And what was it like working with Audra McDonald and playing her mother?
Well, I love Audra, and so it was a pleasure. That's the word I wanted. A pleasure to work with her. The interesting thing is we were never together physically, like usually you do when you're doing a series and everybody's hanging out together. Mm-hmm. So it was on screen, but we were able to capture that chemistry even though we weren't physically together. And so it was great. It was great.
And what was that like, filming a show about a pandemic while going through a pandemic?
Well, it was wild and crazy, and plus the fact that I was filming it in my living room with all this equipment coming in to the living room like we were on a regular TV set, and it worked. And of course, outside the world we didn't know what to expect because of COVID-19 happening, and so it was like, what is going on? But everybody kept safe. And even wardrobe and hair, we did it over the screen, and we pick up what we're going to wear and what the makeup should look like and what the hair should look like. It was an experience, but of course I can't take credit because my daughter Danielle, if it wasn't for her, wouldn't know what I was doing. She did the lighting, she did the set decorating, she put the audio together, she did everything, you name it. She's a one-woman band.
Well, shout out to Danielle. I hope she's somewhere in the credits.
I hope so too. I hope so too.
And were you kind of like in sweatpants, but had the nice professional in character shirt on, like we're doing nowadays for these Zoom meetings?
Well, basically the stuff that we use, sometimes they were bottoms,
Okay.
they had to be seen, but otherwise, you look fabulous from the stomach up.
Yeah, right. So, don't tell anybody I'm in sweatpants right now. Nobody
Yeah,
knows.
yes, it was all about face and tops.
Exactly. I know what that's like. Don't worry. Well, maybe that'll be a new thing. I don't know, doing things remotely. It seems like that's kind of the way to go.
Well, I've done a
But
few things remotely. I've done
Mhm.
some animated stuff right here in my living room. So,
Well, that's amazing.
there's a lot of things now that they're able to do, and it works out great.
Right. And what's something that you're most excited, whether it's like a scene or just the whole show, a certain relationship? What are you most excited for the audience to see?
Well, to see something that's scary but hilarious at the same time, it's different, and you haven't seen anything like this before, and that's a wonderful thing because the show is great.
And I think it kind of brings like a lightheartedness because we've had such a rough year in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
pandemic.
We can look back and laugh. You know, we haven't had a lot of laughs this year, so this
Right.
this is the beginning.
Right. And COVID-19 was bad, but at least we didn't turn into zombies.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me, Leslie. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you, Kayla. Nice to meet you.